Hello, everybody. Today we're going to do the updated Senate prediction for the month of May. I did not put one out last month, but I'm going to be putting one out every month from now until the election. Now, if you're expecting a lot of changes since the previous prediction, you're not going to find them. Given that we've still got 6 months to go and a ton of primaries to get through, we've only really begun to barely tiptoe into election season. You and me might follow politics, but a ton of voters don't pay attention until the final month or two. So as we get a little bit closer, the confidence level is going to go up. So for right now, I still have some reservations. So let's get into this. Let's start with the safe states. These are expected to be over a 10-point margin and not competitive. For the Democrats, we've got Washington, California. Then we've got New Mexico, Minnesota. In the Northeast, we've got Maine. That is for Angus King. He's technically an independent, but we're going to color him blue because he does caucus with the Democrats. Same thing in Vermont if it's Bernie Sanders or even if it's not. Plus New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. In New Jersey, it is possible Bob Menendez runs as an independent and takes a little bit from Kim. So in the end, it could get down under 10. It'd be hard to believe Menendez is actually going to go through with that and take a huge loss. But given that there's a little bit less drama, I think it's time I move this just over safe for the Democrats. Then we've got Delaware, and the last safe blue state is going to be Hawaii. Now we can move on to the safe Republican states. We've got Utah, Wyoming, North Dakota, Nebraska, the Nebraska Special, Missouri, Indiana, Tennessee, Mississippi, and West Virginia. That is, of course, a flip and a pickup for the Republicans. Is there a chance one of these safe red or blue states could get under 10 points? Yeah, it's always possible. I always reevaluate every time I do this prediction, but for right now, I just don't see enough that these are going to get down to likely. But now we can go down to the likely states. These are going to be between a 5 and a 10-point margin for the Democrats. We've got them all on the East Coast. We've got Pennsylvania with Bob Casey. I think he's a popular enough incumbent. It's tough for me to imagine Casey going down. I think likely makes the most sense to me. Then we could go south to Maryland, and we've got Larry Hogan, who's potentially giving the GOP a chance here. However, it's an extremely blue state, so we do have to see what happens. Hogan has been strong in the polling, but I would expect him to sink as the months go on. If he maintains it, I'll readjust. But for right now, I think it's appropriate to not put this at safe, so it's going to go likely for the Democrats. The last likely blue state is going to be Virginia. We've got incumbent Tim Kaine, and on the Republican side, there's several candidates running. It's still not exactly clear who it's going to be. Maybe it's going to be Hung Kao. Maybe it's going to be Scott Parkinson. Either way, Kaine is going to have the advantage. There's an outside chance the state gets competitive. Now the likely states for the GOP. Let's start in Texas. We've got Ted Cruz running for re-election. He had a close one last time in 2018. This time he's going to face Colin Allred. Cruz is definitely not invincible, but he should do a little bit better than he did last time, and I maintain this rating at likely. Next, let's take a look at the Sunshine State, Florida. Here we've got Rick Scott running for a second term. There's a few Democrats that have lined up to challenge Scott, and if you've seen my previous Senate predictions, I've had this at leans Republican. I've kept it there despite a lot of comments saying otherwise. I've always thought Scott was not that strong of a candidate and potentially vulnerable under the right circumstances. We finally did get a little bit of polling out of Florida, and Scott did have a clear advantage. It's definitely not a done deal for Scott, but I think I could bump this up about a half a point to 1 point in favor of Scott, and for me that is going to put it at likely, plus I think it'll save me some trouble in the comments. Now let's go down to the competitive states, the lean margins. These are under 5 points but over 1 point margins. Let's start in Nevada. Again, we've got primaries, but incumbent Jackie Rosen looks like she should be favored at this point. It might be Sam Brown for the GOP. It should be close, but it's hard for me to not think that Rosen is going to have a little bit of an upper hand. Next door in Arizona, this is going to be a big showdown between likely nominees Ruben Gallego for the Democrats and Carrie Lake for the Republicans. Gallego already has seemed to back off any labeling as a progressive. Carrie Lake also has some struggles on her side. She has to deal with the abortion issue. This was a red state not that long ago, but Lake narrowly did lose in her run for governor. So I do think it's going to be competitive. Lake could pull it out, but for right now, this is going to stay at leans Democrat. Now we can go to the Badger State, Wisconsin. Here we've got an incumbent, Tammy Baldwin. She's going for term number 3. I don't think the Republicans have a strong candidate in Eric Hovde. He already ran a long time ago. He did not win the nomination, so he's trying it again, but that reminds me of what Tim Michels did in his run for governor back in the midterms. Michels also had run previously a long time ago, and in the end he came up short. So if it is Hovde, he could potentially pull it out, especially if it turns into a red wave, but I think it's much more likely that Baldwin holds on, so she is going to get this by a lean margin. And then we can go next door to Michigan. Here's an open seat. It's probably going to be Alyssa Slotkin for the Dems. For the Republicans, Republicans, it's still open, but maybe it's going to be Mike Rogers. There's no guarantees here, but I think Slotkin is going to have the advantage, so it is going to go light blue. And now we've got two states left. We've got Montana and Ohio, and these are both tilt margins, and that means it's 1 point or less. So clearly, both of these could go either way. They're pure coin flips. Let's start in Montana. I've read a bunch of stuff. I've gotten a ton of comments. Some of them say there's no way Tester can possibly win. The Trump turnout is going to give Tim Sheehy the win for the GOP, and I've also heard it's very unlikely Tester is going to lose. His popularity is very high, and he is a good fit for the state. Some people are very confident one way or the other, but my response is you really just do not know what is going to happen in the end. We're talking about 6 months from now, but we might be saying the same thing right before the election. It could be a nail-biter. I've seen polling that shows Tester in the lead. I do not think he would win by 10 points. I don't even think he would win by 5 points. I think Tim Sheehy could win this election, but we got to see how they're going to run their campaigns. People know Tester. They trust him. It is a red state presidentially, so that is a concern for Tester. So I do want to see what Sheehy does and what kind of polling turns up. But for right now, I am going to keep this rating the same, and it's going to be a tilt for Tester. And the last state is Ohio. Just like Tester, Sherrod Brown is running for his 4th term. His previous wins probably were during favorable environments, and we all know that this state has trended pretty hard toward the right. The GOP nominee is set in Bernie Moreno. Now, Moreno might not be the strongest candidate, but that does remain to be seen. I haven't really seen much polling here since the primary, so I really can't make any changes here either. Brown absolutely could go down if Trump gets a lot of turnout and there's not much crossover, but he also could hang on and win by a few points. So for right now, I'm going to keep this the same, also at a tilt for the Democrat Brown. So not a lot of changes, but that comes out to a 50-50 tie in the Senate. Republicans have one easy flip here, and that is in West Virginia. They've got a couple of other prime targets in Montana and Ohio, and they do have 4 other states where Democrats are going to be on the defensive in Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, and Michigan. I think Democrats could hold all 4 of those. If it's not a red wave, the Republicans getting one of those 4 I think would be a good night. If it is some kind of a big red wave, maybe they do pick up 2 or more of those seats. As for the Democrats, they really don't have much territory to expand here. Unless it turns into a blue wave, I don't think they're going to get Florida. I don't think they're going to get Texas. They definitely would get closer, but I don't think they would flip. The other states are all pretty much too safe to be truly competitive. Maybe you talk about Pennsylvania getting close, but I don't see it flipping. But Larry Hogan in Maryland, that's a potential dark horse race to watch. If Hogan somehow won that, I think it would be pretty mind-blowing, but I just don't see it happening as of now. But this is just my map. Your map might look a little bit different. So we're going to follow it every month, but let me know in the comments, what do you think about this prediction? Do you think the GOP is going to pick up another seat or 2, or do you think this is it? Are you completely locked into one scenario, or are you open to some different possibilities? Let me know down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.